In 1901, Greek sponge divers pulled a corroded lump of bronze from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. Inside were at least 30 interlocking gears. It was a computer, built a century before the birth of Christ, and nothing like it would exist again for 1,400 years. The year was 1900. Captain Dimitrios Kontos and his crew of sponge divers were working the waters off Antikythera, a small Greek island. They found a Roman shipwreck 45 meters down. The cargo was spectacular. Bronze statues, marble sculptures, pottery, and jewelry. Everything was hauled up and sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. But one object, a corroded mass of bronze and rotted wood, sat ignored for almost 2 years. Museum staff were focused on more obvious treasures. Then, on May 17, 1902, archaeologist Valerio Stace noticed something. Embedded in the corrosion was a gear wheel. Stace thought it might be an astronomical clock, but most scholars dismissed the idea immediately. It was too complex, too sophisticated. It had to be from a later period, somehow mixed in with the ancient cargo. They were wrong. The gears were as old as the statues, and that meant everything we thought we knew about ancient technology was incomplete. The mechanism would have fit in a shoebox, 34 centimeters wide, 18 tall, 9 deep. A wooden case holding bronze gears so precisely made that the teeth were only 1.6 millimeters apart. At least 30 gears. Some reconstructions suggest 54. All handcrafted, all interlocking. You'd turn a crank on the side. The crank is lost now. But one full rotation represented one solar year. Turn it forward and you'd see the future. Turn it backward and you'd see the past. The front face showed the sun and moon moving through the zodiac. A small half-silvered ball rotated to display the phases of the moon. It tracked where celestial bodies would be on any given day. But the back of the device, that's where it gets strange. 5 spiral dials, tracking cycles within cycles. The upper dial counted a 19-year calendar called the Metonic cycle, 235 lunar months. It also tracked the schedule of the ancient Olympic Games and other pan-Hellenic athletic festivals. The lower dial predicted eclipses. It used the Saros cycle, a pattern discovered by Babylonian astronomers, where eclipses repeat every 18 years and 11 1/3 days, 223 months. And here's the part that still unnerves modern engineers. The mechanism didn't just track the moon's position. It modeled the moon's elliptical orbit. The moon moves faster when it's closer to Earth and slower when it's farther away. The Greeks didn't have calculus, but they built a system of epicyclic gears mounted on other gears to approximate that changing speed. The accuracy? A lunar month calculated as 27.321 days. The modern measurement is 27.321661. They were off by a fraction of a percent. This wasn't magic. It was astronomy encoded in bronze. A machine that could tell you when the next eclipse would darken the sky, decades before it happened. And then this knowledge vanished. The next devices of comparable complexity don't appear until the 14th century. Richard of Wallingford's astronomical clock, Giovanni da Dondi's planetarium. Over 1,400 years later. But here's the thing. The Antikythera Mechanism wasn't built by someone figuring this out for the first time. The sophistication, the precision, it indicates a tradition. Workshops, apprentices, generations of accumulated expertise. And we have proof that tradition existed. The Roman statesman Cicero, writing in the 1st century BCE, described 2 devices built by Archimedes, who died in 212 BCE. One was kept as a family heirloom. The other was placed in a temple in Rome. Archimedes even wrote a treatise on how to build them. It's called On Sphere Making. It's lost. Most of these devices were probably melted for scrap. Bronze was valuable. The mechanism only survived because it sank. For 70 years after its discovery, the mechanism's secrets stayed locked in corrosion. Then, in 1974, a Yale professor named Derek DeSola Price used X-ray imaging to peer inside. He published a paper called Gears from the Greeks. It was the first serious reconstruction. In 2002, Michael Wright at London's Science Museum built the first working replica. You could turn the crank and watch 2,000 years of engineering come back to life. But the real breakthrough came in 2005. A team from Cardiff University, led by astronomer Mike Edmonds, brought in cutting-edge technology, computer X-ray tomography, the kind used in hospitals. They scanned every fragment, and suddenly, the mechanism opened up. They could see gears that had been hidden. They could read inscriptions on the surface, an ancient operating manual etched into the bronze. The 2006 Nature paper confirmed it. At least 30 gears, an astronomical calculator. But they also found something else. In 2016, deeper scans revealed numbers carved inside. 462, 442. Those are the synodic cycles of Venus and Saturn, the time it takes for those planets to return to the same position relative to Earth and the Sun. The mechanism didn't just track the Sun and Moon, it tracked all 5 visible planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Mike Edmonds, the lead researcher, put it this way: it's like opening a pyramid and finding an atomic bomb. So who built it? The calendar engraved on the mechanism uses Corinthian month names. That points to Corinth, or one of its colonies. Syracuse, home of Archimedes, was all a Corinthian colony. So was Epirus in northwestern Greece. But the ship also carried pottery from Rhodes, and Rhodes was home to Hipparchus, one of the greatest astronomers of the ancient world. The mechanism's calculation of the moon's orbit, that's Hipparchus's work. His mathematical theory translated into bronze. There's a third candidate, Pergamon. Coins found in the wreck suggest the ship may have stopped there. Pergamon had a library to rival Alexandria. If any place could produce something like this, it was there. We don't know how the mechanism ended up on that ship. Was it someone's personal possession? Valuable cargo? War loot being transported to Rome? The ship went down before it could deliver its secrets, and we don't know what it was for. Maybe it was a teaching device, a way to demonstrate how the cosmos worked. Maybe it was practical, used by priests to regulate calendars and predict eclipses. Maybe it was a luxury item, a showpiece for a wealthy patron who wanted to display their knowledge of the heavens. The exact purpose? Still speculative. We can read the gears, but we can't read the mind of the person who commissioned it. So why did the technology disappear? Bronze gets recycled. It always has. You melt down the old, you cast the new. Most of these devices probably ended up as coins or cooking pots. The fall of Rome shattered the networks that sustained this kind of knowledge. Workshops closed. Trade routes collapsed. The expertise was held by a few people, and when they were gone, so was the craft. And the culture changed. The questions people asked shifted, from celestial mechanics to theology, from how does the moon move to what does the moon mean? If it happened to them, it can happen to us. Hard drives decay, servers go offline, languages die. We think knowledge is permanent because we have the internet, but expertise still walks out the door when someone retires without an apprentice. The Antikythera Mechanism forces a question we don't. I'd like to ask, what else did they build that we'll never know about? Not just the Greeks, every civilization that rose and fell without leaving enough behind. We decoded one artifact because it survived by accident. How many didn't? The mechanism exists in 82 fragments now, held in Athens, still being studied. 2,100 years after it sank, we're still catching up to it.